Welcome to Brands of Value, the podcast about unlocking hidden marketing and growth potential. I am your host, David Götz, and in this podcast we'll be hearing from Mirja Schwartz. At the point of recording, Mirja was the managing director of the community strategy agency Heitilda. However, since then she's decided to go independent as a strategist and consultant for innovative culture. Mirja, could you please introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Mirja. I live and work and I am in Stuttgart at the moment. I am the co-founder of a strategic consultancy named Heitilda, and we, as you already mentioned, we focus on community building and the topic of belonging in general.
Thank you for that introduction. Now, this show is a show about value. So to get a baseline, let's first have a little discussion about what the concept of value means to you, especially in the context of business.
Yes, I was really excited about the whole topic because we are getting into the real deep shit right now. Because I think in general, talking about values, you can either scratch on the surface of when talking about brands or corporates or even my personal values. But let's talk context, no business-wise. When working on or with brands, you guide this team of people through a brand building process, which can be intense and fun and really engaging. But honestly, the most bizarre moment is when you actually sum up everything and hand over, let's say, a brand guideline. And then there's this one page where you can read about brand values. So this is like every time this is like the moment when I think about all the following moments where somebody else will read exactly this page and it will totally mean nothing. Because that's the whole point with values. You need to experience values. You need to feel, see, hear, read, engage with what value means to a brand or a company or a team. And otherwise, just by reading it means totally nothing. So if you're asking about working with values, it's like it's all and nothing.
It's all and nothing, I hear. But when we talk about values, how do they translate into monetary value? Is there a direct connection that you can make between companies living by certain values and actually creating more value in the world?
It does sound a bit too buzzwordy when you describe it in this way, because I think creating a set of values or just be like really aware of what kind of values you're driven by. It's really taking a look inside of your company, inside your brand and what you want to go for. And when you do this, you're talking big picture, right? You're talking about a vision and then you're talking about finding the right narrative. And I believe that you're not able to do this if you don't think about your set of values. You cannot draw a line from value creation to product or services, or let's say how you employ your people, like for the team. But values should always be part of something, and it should create like a context on how you do things and why you do things. Somebody else, a different company, a different team, a different brand can have the exact same set of values, but it's always how you deal with them. How do you make them experienceable and needs to be shared?
I guess shared is quite a good key word to talk about, because run a company which does community strategy. How does community strategy fit in with business values? What even is community strategy?
To begin with, I would say that there's a really big misconception about the term community in general. So I will give you my definition, or let's say it's not a definition that I did for myself, but rather a common definition used by researchers, facilitators, authors, educators. Just to mention a few names like Priya Parker or John A. Powell, Brené Brown. And you see those kind of names, they are not rooted in brand building or strategy in general. They bring like different perspectives. So community as a word, it describes a group of people a group of people where you feel you belong. So you can foster and build belonging, but there are different stages to it. So, for example, one of those stages is participation. So it's really important because presumably the best part of belonging is full participation. And from that, you could probably draw a line, if we're going back to values, you can draw a line to, does your brand, does your corporate offer participation? These two things, like even these two words, are really connected. Like three words actually: community, belonging, and participation. Now, if you think about how brand strategy is being built and how much potential there is to build community, this is what we define in the community strategy. So we look at the big picture of a brand. You can call it, we create the vision. Then you think about the narrative. And to fill this with life, you need different stakeholders, right? So one part would be the internal team that are, holding like different roles within the company. So with them, you would start, and then you start fostering engagement, participation, and so on. So for a couple of these stages, you would need a community manager. And this is why I started with this big misconception, because when people talk about or use the word community, most of them nowadays, they think about social media. So, and then they go like, okay, social media, we need a community manager. For us, like community strategy for a brand is a much bigger part. It should be a part in the corporate strategy, actually.
Oh, so it's at a much higher level than, say, the marketing team even. It's a business strategy level.
Absolutely. There's this underlying decision that you would make for people who run a company, and say the CEO or CMO or whoever, whether you would like your brand to be like out there and you want people to participate with the brand. If you want engagement on a more deeper level than just sharing some pictures. Best case scenario would be you have like a really strong community and they even foster innovation for or within your company.
That fits quite well into a narrative that I saw with Zukunftsinstitut. They talked about brand building in one of their reports and said that the traditional idea of thinking about the needs of humans within Maslow's hierarchy needs to be rethought. Traditionally, the Maslow's hierarchy ended with the self-fulfilling, and they suggested extending that idea to build a level on top of that, which is to follow a greater mission beyond oneself as part of a group of people. And I guess this is where you then come in and say, we want to strategize how companies can achieve that.
When we talk with clients, or let's say with business partners or whoever, the concept of community is really, for most of them, it's a really abstract concept, because we have been trained, or people have been trained as working within marketing or communication, that we use a certain type of or certain set of KPIs. So what you've been just talking about, this pyramid, is like there's an underlying different set of KPIs. So let's say, how high is your how high is the ability that you're able to participate, that you are able to co-create, or that you can fulfill, personal growth goals. And this is something that is really hard to measure with, the standard KPIs that we all learned in university. So I totally see where this is coming from, because, so much in the world out there we are oversaturated with things. So we are really looking for something that is bigger and higher. Don't get me wrong. I mean, like people working in advertisement, there's always like a huge storytelling potential, looking for the next big thing. I mean, there's also a really high potential for brands who are rooted in like a really strong narrative, and and they're out there and they're saying, okay, we have a strong vision. And of course, everybody needs to have money. Growth isn't per se like a bad thing. Like, we need growth for economy. We need growth like for all different kind of reasons. We need jobs and so on. But people looking for different things. They are not looking for the most cheapest product to buy. They're looking for something else. And this, I think it does make sense also when you think about, what Zukunftsinstitut said, like the thing you just quoted, because on the other hand, like there's a really big, there's this mega trend following, technology development and stuff like this. So these are like parallel mega trends that we see more often now. You have this like personal growth, really looking for something bigger than consumerism, capitalism. And on the other hand, people they're really excited about technology developments and so on. So I'm really happy that even like institutes like Zukunftsinstitut, they're coming up with a new set of KPIs or goals.
I thought it was pretty smart, and it really spoke to me as a marketer as to how I want to shape brands as well. Now, talking about communities, why should companies care?
The challenges out there, that they have been there for ages. So the biggest challenge for companies, for brands, is that they are being outrun by competitors, that they are being disrupted by somebody who runs a more smarter company, a better brand, or having a better product or whatever. So they should care about building community, because it means like building resilience, right? I mean, you need to look at the concept of community building or community in general. It's a long run. It takes time. Like, usually building a strong community, like the whole concept of this, we are talking like 5 years. Okay. So this is not, okay, I'm talking to my community in the next brand campaign, and this is it. You have to think about, fostering relationships, getting yourself out there in different bubbles. I have this saying, you have to be like letting the inside out and the outside in. It's really important for brands and companies that they share stuff, that they are open for new trends, for new impulses. And where does this come from? It comes from the community that you surround yourself with. If you're not thinking about community as in target group and more in, like the people that you want to be connected with, that you want to learn from, then they should really care about that.
This show is supported by the 30-Minute University of Planning. The 30-Minute University is a free community with over 10,000 people from all over the world, consisting of mentors and mentees from strategy departments. They facilitate 30-minute one-on-one meetings between seasoned professionals and those at the start of their careers. If you are a young professional looking to learn from the best in the business, or a strategist looking to share your expertise, search the 30-Minute University on LinkedIn.
That sounds a lot like a quote from Seth Godin. I don't know if you've heard of him. People like us do things like this. And with people like us, he means to define what a group of people unites. And with do things like this, he tries to show a direction or a path in which these people are moving together. Is that a concept that could be used, or what would be the first step to thinking about community strategy?
Yeah, it's exactly that. It's finding common ground. And that's why I said, don't mistake your target group as your community, because you really need to have a target group. If you're a corporate that is selling a product or offering services, and then you have a price tag behind it, you need to know who you are giving these services to, who you are building these products for. So you need to have this defined target group. But when you think about community, then obviously you're talking to the same set of people, but you're also talking to all different other peoples that you might call your community. And those are the people that are interested in the same vision, that they see personal growth in what you're doing. And it might be just inspiration or education or just being like a role model on how you run a company. Let's say, I mean, there are a lot of followers, a lot of fans of Patagonia out there. And if you ask, let's say, 10 people working in branding, I would say half of them, they will point out Patagonia as a value-driven company. So even if they are not part of the company, they see themselves like connected to it. That's me scratching on the community surface. You know what I mean?
Do you have another example of a company where where community or the community marketing and strategy aspect is working really well?
The first set of brands is like companies like IKEA, for example, where you feel in everything they do, but maybe not in everything, but in a lot of things they do, people are really have a strong connection to this brand because it's really rooted in emotions. You know, you grow up with those companies, you feel seen. You really have this connection because of the way they communicate and then the first set would be really established brands that are really doing a good work on brand building and so on, and innovation also. And the other set would be, and this is like a really interesting part for, you know, all the other brands, there's this new generation of brands and corporates coming up. And what they do differently would be mainly they start with building communities. It's not, you probably hear or see about a new brand on social media, or let's say from people talking to you, like friends or family, because they will point out something that's really interesting for them, or that really resonates with your set of values, actually. And then you would learn about a product or service of them like in the second phase. So either it be like a financial service or educational service or product. These brands, they are community first, and then they also offer products and services. So I think this is really interesting what's happening out there.
So brands that work a lot more like you would say an influencer does, that they first build a huge following or collect a set of people that are true fans of them and then go and look, what can we do to serve these people, rather than going the other way? Or
no, I would say that it's a different mechanism. It's not that you are building a strong. Well, this happens also. This is like something that's also there, that you have a community and then they are offering services and stuff. This is also a possibility, but I mean, there's so much more inspiration about new companies or new startups, and because they have, you know, this vision to educate and to serve people and to find a really purposeful role within society. So they have a really strong narrative. They offer a product. It's not that and now they're offering a product. It's like you already know you can buy products or, you know, take their services. But it's more like the effort that they put into building a community and building a really strong vision that people understand out there. This is on a much higher level than, you know, old-fashioned companies do.
So would you say that these sort of new age community companies are inspired by the success of influencers or what happened there, and seeing what happened to people who already had a community and a following and then started building on top of that?
I think these are 2 pair of shoes.
Okay, no, that's fine. We're learning here together.
No, but there's a point in it. If you think about, somebody like a person, like a real life person that you've been following on social media, and then this person is, writing a book or something, then this is something that it totally makes sense. Or let's say, let's talk about Gary Vee, for example. Like he's a businessman and people are interested in him because he runs businesses and he is supporting an idea of, let's put it this way, a new way of capitalism also. He's really inspirational. Like even if I'm not buying consultation from him, or let's say, even if I'm not buying a book from him, I find this like really inspirational content. So this is like one thing, but let's say there are quite a few brands out there and they are following their vision on how are we able to live a more sustainable life. And then they are offering, some services or mental health apps or whatever. And this service is really helping people and really helping, like the target group. But I can totally, like Gary Vee, I can totally follow those brands and really learn something about, let's say, mental growth or mental health, even if I'm not subscribing to the app. You know what I mean? So it's really more about telling a bigger story about their vision.
Do you have any example of a company that does that? Is it Calm, or what company were you just thinking about?
Yeah, Calm is a really good example, or Viva Con Aqua. Mm-hmm. But they have like a really this is they also have this sense of being a non-profit organization, but they are selling a product, right? But they are also like following like really strong vision, and people can resonate with that. And you see like what kind of role this brand is taking on within the society. They are having this role of a rebel. This can be a big role model for other companies. Another example would be Einhorn Berlin, or 4D. I don't know. Like there are a couple of brands where you learn a lot about the way they tell the narrative to people. And it has a really strong focus on education and inspiration, and not, okay, hey, there's this new lemonade and it's really fancy and it tastes well. It's deeper than that, and it's following a much bigger purpose.
I recently read a quote on story, and I really like the word. Really like that you use the word narrative, because I feel like people get story and narrative confused quite a lot. Narratives are bigger than stories, from my understanding, and then stories can happen within them. So is community building a lot to do with building that narrative?
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with your definition. I would say a narrative is or should always be worthwhile. Like we do a lot of work with brands and talking about or creating future scenarios. And you have this, you have come up with a thesis because you looked at certain trends and you did this future scenario mapping and stuff like this. This is the moment where you need a narrative. So a narrative makes everybody on the team, everybody on the company, the brand, it makes it for them being able to follow strategic directions. For example, my narrative would be, I'm working within the field of community because I really want to strengthen a sense of belonging within the society, because I have this strong feeling that we are all being very influenced by technology. So I want to foster, personal connections and stuff like this. So this is my narrative, and it doesn't mean that you know everything about what I'm doing and stuff like this. And the story would be something. It will be a vehicle for a little thing that I do. It would be like, it could be a campaign. It could be like a temporary statement or stuff like this. So a narrative is something that it's that you can follow for a much longer time.
Like, I couldn't have said it any better. And I really liked your example as well with sharing your own narrative. Now, talking about companies again, what challenges do they face in your experience when they are trying to build a community, or when they try to think of a community strategy with you?
I would say the most common challenge is when we start working with, where it's not always just this one person from a company that we work with. So usually we work with like a team, or let's say at least 2 or 3 people from a brand. And most of the time, it's actually from the marketing department. So in the beginning, like in the first phase, we tend to realize, like together, like everything we do is basically like a co-creation process. But we see like they really have difficulties describing exactly what you asked in the beginning. What are your values? What is this big picture that you are doing everything for, that you are aiming to? And it's really significant how little people are able to describe that vision or this or the mission, let's say. So I think this is like the biggest challenge for brands, really being able to communicate what they are aiming for. But this will always be the starting point when you think about building a community or creating a community strategy, because this is actually what we are starting with the core of your brand.
So it starts with knowing yourself, and you say a lot of companies struggle with even knowing themselves.
Yeah, no, that's right, and I mean that's what I said in the beginning. It's on the one hand, you would have this. I mean, not every brand do have a brand guideline, and it's somewhat outdated for some brands already. But I think it's really important that as a team you are able to talk about how this brand feels like, or how this brand is supposed to communicate, or supposed to be experienced by people, and this is really hard for them. But if you don't know it yourself, then how would you be able to come up with activations or creating platforms and stuff like this?
So say a company has got that down, they really know what they're doing and who they speak to, what they stand for, what vision they have for the world. What follows in your community strategy? Is it activations that you just talked about?
You really have to remember that community building, or even coming up with a community strategy, it really takes time. And as I said, we would start with the core of what your brand is and what your brand's vision is. But then the next step would be having a sense of the common ground that you want people to connect with. And don't get me wrong, there are brands out there or teams out there that are feeling really connected with what they're doing and what the brand actually means to them. The next thing would be to point out those people that are really connected to the brand, and they could either be on your team already, or they could be like outside. But you have to have like some kind of mechanism to be able to point out those people. Even before you begin looking for those people, who are your stakeholders in general? Like, who would be your community ambassador, your brand ambassador? Who could be a creator? And with that, I don't mean typically content creators, like for social media. It could be like somebody who's contributing like in a different way. Like there are people out there who are really good with connecting with other people, and this could be a contribution as well. And then it really depends on what your goal is. with your community? Is your goal to be able to communicate more authentically, or is your goal just to get a notion of what are the next big trends out there? What are people talking about? So now this can be can go in really different directions from there. But let's say,
what kind of directions? What are there big trends in which it can go? So you went one direction was to communicate authentically. One direction was to have a sort of a group of people which can help you decide the future of your company or give you ideas for the future. But are there other sort of things that unite people?
Yes, it could also be like certain like uncertainties that you're facing. For example, what are relevant technological trends out there, and are they really like relevant for what we are doing? If you think about this direction, then obviously you need like a certain set of stakeholders who are able to participate in this discussion. And this can be like people within your company, but you definitely should be more open and look for people outside of your bubble. Because if you're only talking to the people that you've been talking to for the last decade, then probably nothing new would come out of this. If you're facing this direction, right? If you're looking for new impulses, this could be one possibility.
Can you tell us about a time when you did a strategy for a company and it actually really worked out and you were super proud about it?
Now, this is one of my favorite, actually, because you could actually see what has been done after this. So this is like, let's say, a year ago, and we were actually working with a brand within the context of bikes. E-bikes and bikes in general. It's a German brand, and we were working with a set of people from this brand actually on identity and positioning, and even like retail activation for this bike brand. And by doing that, we realized that there's this huge potential within the core team, because from the outside looking in, you would immediately see that they have like a really strong connection to what they're doing. All of them were riding bikes themselves. They were talking about bikes and these tours like all the time. But when you look to the website or the social media channels, or just like how this brand is being experienced from the outside, this didn't match. They were actually at the stage where they needed to open up to a wider audience to foster this community that they have already built inside. We ended up facilitating a couple of workshops, bringing different stakeholders together, and even within this team, like stakeholders from the brand itself, we have people from marketing, sales, and retail representatives, and all these different kind of people. And basically what we did is like really building up confidence on engaging with more people about telling a more authentic story, and coming up with platforms where they can connect with other people. Even with people from other brands, people who are interested in riding bikes, or, choosing a bike over a car. This was like a whole new level for them. And for them, it was more like, building up confidence and putting themselves out there. And in their case, the community strategy emphasized on collaborating with like-minded businesses and being even more edgy in the way they communicated with their peers.
Can you give us 3 examples of activations or things that companies can do to better engage with their community?
I think I already mentioned one of them. It's really so simple, but it's really effective if you think about it inside out and outside in. Mm-hmm. So fostering discourse with people, companies, or all the stakeholders that are relevant, and letting them taking part of your brand. The second would be, this would actually be the first, start from within. As I already said, it's like really being aware of your own values and how you want them to be experienced by other people and other companies. And then the third one would be figuring out the roles you need to elevate your brand's community, and like really take those roles serious. For example, you actually might need a community manager, but you might also need people who actually start building community, who start building those structures and those platforms. And I don't mean like programmers. If I say like building those platforms, it's like making room for exchange, for discussions, and really implement this in your company's strategy, in your company's communication strategy.
So what sort of platforms are we talking about if you say we're not talking about only online platforms?
Yeah.
Where does community happen?
It depends on the brand. It really does. I mean, there are like brands, as we talked before, that are really online first, and it really makes sense for them to foster a community on an online channel. And you can start with Instagram, you can start with TikTok, but you will never be in a deeper level of connection or participation if you stick to those platforms. It would make sense for most parts of the community, like most parts of the members. But if you're really looking for the people who drive the change or are really interested in co-creation, you would have to switch to different platforms. And this could be in real life events. It could be, it could be any kind of gathering. It could be a competition or anything, but it's really important that you don't think about these kind of events as a one-off or as something that, okay, and now we do this once in a lifetime event to get to know our community. It needs like consistency. It needs to be like really part of your community strategy plan. Let's say, like we really want to be in contact with this core team of our community, and we are meeting with them like every other month, let's say. And then this could be like in an online channel, and then maybe 2 times a year you meet in real life.
That's a very good summary of ideas of platforms of where people can meet, the importance of actually meeting in person as well, and creating that space for meeting in person.
And just if I can just add one more thing, it depends on the brand, because for example, this bike brand that I just talked about, like, they do communicate on WhatsApp or whatever, Slack or whatever channel they might be using. But for them, most importantly, it's like meeting on the trails, meeting their peers on the trails, or meeting them, somewhere doing like trips together or whatever. So it really depends on what the brand stands for.
Can you recall a time when a business took you into their community and you felt really welcome and, were like, oh, I see so much value in being here and being with these people?
Like 2 examples, they come up in my mind. I think the first one is also the reason why I mentioned this brand early on. I would say IKEA. I'm sorry, this is really lame, but I will pick IKEA because I was just visiting one of their stores actually a couple of days ago, and I was really struck by the emotions that this brand is really like making me feel once I enter the store. And it really has to do with this brand building for the long run. I've been there as a kid and stuff like this. So when we went to the store, it was me and my whole family. And I really realized how welcoming and how familiar everything was. And this is not, me sitting in a room with like 20 IKEA employees. It's like, just this feeling that I have when experiencing this brand. And the other one would be at the moment, I'm part of a new community that we are building. It's called the Ladies Realm. It's not out there right now, but it's really amazing how this really strong connection to people you're able to build without even meeting once. We've just met online a couple of months ago, and it's because we are this shared vision that we build this community, that we want to build this community on, and like everybody's throwing themselves into that and really contributing to making this like a really great thing. So
that's very nice examples. I can see the IKEA feeling is strong. Also within.
It's like, this is no advertisement, but it's just like
they're doing a good job apparently.
Yeah,
if our
being
community
a child
experts
again. Yeah, absolutely.
Have you heard of this idea of 1,000 true fans, and how does that fit in with community marketing?
I have actually not heard about that.
Okay, so the idea of 1,000 true fans, I don't know where exactly it came from. I think it's some essay on the internet, and it states that in order to survive as a company, you only really need 1,000 true fans that pay you $100 or euros a year. And that should make you be able to get enough money to survive for a year. And would you say something that you mentioned earlier, finding these people that really burn for your cause fits in with the idea of 1,000 true fans?
Yes, it does. In an age where you are being sold like so much stuff, if you just open any social media channel and you get this sense of you're able to build a company from scratch and then you become a millionaire and you only need to do this or that. It's like, this is really hard work finding those 1,000 people. And with finding, I mean, like, I believe if you are able to articulate your vision in a really strong way, you will probably find 1,000 people easy. Mm-hmm. And I think that those 1,000 people, they serve as ambassadors and they serve as your extended team in building on your vision and building, just basically your brand. I totally believe this is a true statement. Yeah.
Now we've talked about a lot of things. We've talked about what community strategy is, what it isn't. We've talked about some of the steps that are necessary to getting there, like first of all, starting to get to know yourself and identifying the people you really have a strong connection with and then getting them together in some way. We've talked about some examples, IKEA.
This episode is sponsored by IKEA.
Not quite. We've talked about some examples where it went really well, like IKEA. But is there an example where you're like, oh, this company is completely missing out and we really think they could benefit from a good community strategy?
Ooh, there are so many of them. When we talk about brands, we almost immediately think about something like Nike or Apple or stuff like that. But every city, every institution, every whatever it is also a brand. And I would say, because we've been working with the city of Stuttgart on the topic of community building, I would say that a lot of cities would be better off if they think more about their city as a brand, and then how you can foster a strong brand community actually for them.
Would you say that a lot of cities have a lot of potential to do there? I guess there's cities that everyone knows which naturally do that, like Hamburg, Berlin, Munich. There's obviously so many more cities.
Yeah. Do you want me to pick out to mention a city? I think that even for Stuttgart, I mean, like a lot of cities, they stick to their narrative that has been built, let's say 10, 20 years ago. This city stands for this or that. And actually, so much happened in between, good or bad. But it's really worth the effort to see, okay, what are actually those interesting stakeholders within my area that could really foster a new narrative, That's what we also did. Wirtschaftsförderung Landeshauptstadt Stuttgart, finding new topics that people are interested in, finding, curating formats around those topics. And you would be surprised of what kind of companies, what kind of sub-communities are actually happening or are actually there. And then you might find a new narrative.
So it's just about unlocking that potential within the cities.
Yes.
So if you have a message that you want to put out into the world to any company or any CMO or any startup founder listening, what would it be?
A lot of companies, economy in general, like especially in Germany and other countries too, they are really struggling economically. It's really obvious. But if I had this one voice, I would say this is also an opportunity, building a strong community, finding those allies that you want to be connected with, fostering those connections. And I totally believe something good and new will come out of this. Yeah, getting people involved, finding new allies, and really building strong communities.
Would you say hard times make that especially easy because you connect in struggle?
Yes and no. I think like hard times are hard times for a reason. Maybe it's less about money and more about why you do things and where you want to be in a couple of years and what you want to stand for. And I think that if you throw yourself out there and show people that you are here and that you are open for new ideas, I think then they will come to you and then you would find those new connections.
Very strong finish to the topic. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mirja. That's it from us today. We hope you enjoyed the show. Please feel free to reach out to Mirja on LinkedIn for any questions regarding innovation, culture, or community strategy. And you can find her under the name Mirja and then the surname Schwartz. Please leave a like if possible on their platform and don't forget to follow this podcast. Cheers!